You're listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, here we go again. Buckle up. Rough roads ahead. Kind of a warming day. So I'm going to start with that thing I said about getting in a vehicle or hanging onto a vehicle. You can see in some of the videos that an officer prevails, kind of. I mean, you don't want to be falling on the ground. Sometimes you get caught in the vehicle. But what it is this idea of not letting go. Just being so hyper-focused on that moment. It's in law enforcement, you have to understand one thing. Ye old wise law enforcement voice. There's always somebody else to arrest. That's the first thing to always remember. To succeed in law enforcement, you have to remember that there is always someone else to arrest. Now, I'm not telling you that there isn't something counter to that to help motivate you in an investigation or a 911 call or whatever. But there's always someone else to arrest. So the person before you, if they're not arrested, within a couple hours, there'll be someone else to arrest. Or the ticket or whatever it is. So the idea is this. We are pretty darn technologically advanced. We would be further technologically advanced if officers would just give up the idea that they actually have to drive around at 900 miles an hour to get somebody. And that's where it's the same mindset. So the idea is this. Is develop something in the mind that's quick and easy. A lot of times it's called, in the military, it's called a battle drill. But it's just a drill. And what you do is you say something simple like that. I mean, you could alter it. You say step back, right? Because you're getting away from that vehicle. I used to, the funny thing, run away from King Arthur's people. So so you step back, you get on your radio, and you pursue if necessary and if capable. And you'll be a lot more capable to pursue if you don't enter that vehicle. There's no need to worry about an individual arrest. There's no need to worry about an individual case, although you should be focused on it. There's millions of cases, millions of people will be arrested in the next year or charged with something or given a ticket, whatever it is. So there's no reason that you have to risk your own life at that level. And also, the idea of public safety, well, if he gets away, well, if you get in that car and you shoot him, we don't know what's going to happen. Even though historically, they kind of, I think the couple cases where they shot the person and the officer lived, they kind of just drove off the road, right? But it does kill officers. And again, officer safety, it's an officer safety issue, an officer survival issue. And a community safety issue also. So again, when we look at, okay, so you're telling us that we have to form this perimeter and wait, and then 3 people get killed, or we don't chase after this person and they get away. It's again that Tucker Carlson mindset. You're focusing on that as if you would have succeeded exponentially every time that you went the other direction, and you wouldn't have. So some of the loss happens anyway. But we don't have an officer sitting inside a vehicle confronted with one option, shoot the driver. Right. So again, that's one. The other one where they fall out. A lot of officers have been killed. So you have to focus strategically. And again, with stats, there's actually and I've said this before. There's unofficial quotas everywhere. It's called stats. So if somebody over there gets 5 arrests and you only have 2, you know that, and everybody else knows that. And if your office only gets 5 arrests and the other office gets 10 arrests, but where does that lead people? It leads people into creating crime and creating people to arrest and that kind of thing. So again, the whole thing is a problem of this larger systemic issue. And it works better if you don't cause all the issue. Because again, for officers, looking at these cases, do I pull my gun or I don't pull my gun? This person's being charged. So again, it muddies the water, and it's not something you want to really be involved in for the long haul. Again, the long haul, I had to wait till everything crashed to show them how it crashes. But again, they're going to say bail reform. It's not really bail reform. New York did this study. It wasn't bail reform. They said, we studied bail reform, and it's not what's causing what we're seeing. Now, the mayor being a former police officer that has a police department that he has to manage with his chief and all that, commissioner, whatever, his chiefs and commissioners and all that, he's not going to say anything in that direction. But that's your issue. You have to focus. Again, planning narcotics. We've seen that. If you catch one, there's another 50 you didn't catch, or something like that. So again, that's not how it's done. They're telling you that's how it's done. What that is that develops a police force that will protect criminal enterprise when it's told to protect criminal enterprise. And if that's where you are, then you're not a police force. You're just another organized crime entity. So we get back to the idea, step back, get on that radio, and then pursue if capable and if necessary. Because the person could drive 5 feet and drive off the road, Right, so recently there was the sheriff himself got involved out there. He's all proud, presenting to the public what he did so he can get elected again. But the whole thing is that person had that Draco, and it was pretty, I didn't see the whole chase, but it's pretty much the way it goes and the stop sticks. And it's just like Elon Musk. Now, you can't see it because maybe you don't understand violence. Elon Musk's rocket is violent. It ate itself up and blew up. Stop sticks are violent. Right. Violence begets violence. Even if you're thinking you're doing something right, if there are other officers who are in the mix that set somebody into that motion of committing that crime because they messed with their psychology, metaphysically cursed them, spiritually were down on them, whatever it is, and you go as an innocent person, theoretically, and you're going to effectuate that arrest and the stop stick and all that, but who made the person crazy? Could have been 10 years officers harassing somebody. And harassment is at the level of psychological warfare and spycraft at this point. So when we look at the larger picture, why is your traffic stop so violent? Because everything else is. So the easiest thing to do always is that. Now, what's required, the easiest thing to do is step back and get away from the vehicle. Again, everybody in the world knows a vehicle driving at you, don't step in front of it. What do officers do? Step in front of it, pull their gun out, and shoot the driver. But in reality, at a certain point, you may have a case from that. And they've investigated before, and they go, well, he was driving, and they kind of whitewashed it. You have an obligation to get out of the way. You really do. Because everybody, remember what are the cases based upon? What is law based upon? What a reasonable person would do. A reasonable person would not stand in front of a vehicle. A reasonable person would get out of the way, get on the radio. Now, there's another part of this. Your systems are not up, and some of you are. Who was it that did it? Was it Kansas City? Somebody recently put in the news and put it, because a lot of people don't want to put it in a release because they don't want people to know that they're using the cameras to locate people. Right? Because, if we keep it secret, they will know, and we'll get higher stats. Again, the stats getting in the middle. We have, everybody will think we're the greatest arresters in the world. Well, we don't want to be arresters. We want people to be not afraid, but they should think twice about doing what they're about to do. And if they realize that we can look at all these cameras and find them, then they might not do it. So again, I'm big on releasing that. So the idea is having a camera system structured. There should be a drone in there. Remember the day when all the helicopters, you get in LA, you probably still hear it. Walk around, go, what the hell there? Where, what? What are you doing up there? Trying to take my walk. So again, drones are much quieter, but we need the big drones, and they got our drones in the Ukraine. That's what we were supposed to. The initial drones that went over the Ukraine, the big observation drones and all that, that was supposed to be for us, for the law enforcement effort. And what you have to do with that is you have to make sure the officer isn't going to follow his girlfriend because he thinks she's cheating on him. So you have to make it so it's not usable like that. So your system can't say, we're going to, our officers are honest and we're going to let this happen. And no, you can't do that. You make it safe for the officer, because it's unsafe for an officer for you to have a system where an officer can be corrupt. So you have to close those doors to make it foolproof so that your officers have a career that works for them. So the idea again is step back, and you can change it any way you want, but very simple, 3 steps. Step back, get away from the vehicle, get on the radio, pursue if capable and if necessary. And then the officers have that in their head because you trained with it, you said it at roll call, and they'll step back. So it's an officer safety issue, an officer survival issue that they're getting in these vehicles. It's not a reasonable person. A reasonable person would not, and a reasonable officer would not enter that vehicle. They would not. It's just not good business. Again, if they're going to pull away, have faith in your system that it'll work. Now, off of that, you might have somebody that goes and kills their mother and their uncle. They get to the location, they kill their uncle, their mother, maybe commit suicide, maybe the SWAT team has to go in and neutralize, whatever it is. You already have that happening when you enter the vehicle and all these other things that you're trying to do instead of, just relaxing and going through it with a neutral mind. So again, we don't want to do the Tucker Carlson analysis method where, because there's an issue off of one system that we don't remember that there's issues from the previous system. Again, like homeless people are in the hotels using drugs. Homeless people were on the street using drugs. Some of them will be in the hotels using drugs. But I guarantee you that it's better for the officer to know that they're all right there. There's about 10 of them, 20 of them. And there's a couple that use drugs. They've had issues. They fight. It happens. But the officer gets a phone call and said, officer, room, and it's a lot easier than saying, I think they went down that street. I think they're in the woods over there. So again, that could happen also, but less likely. So again, what this does is it builds a certain mindset. If you have a successful special ops team, they're just really not connected. And successful means the strategic plan is being effectuated. Again, if you want to reduce something, just because you kill it doesn't mean that it didn't increase it. So you see. So law enforcement, police science, it used to be called police science, but now they don't even use it. They use ignorance. Ignorance is golden and bliss and all that. But police science tells us that it's not bail reform. New York already studied that. Thank you. Well, a lot of you have witchcraft, and that's kind of an unknown, but I see it manifesting in your harassments. You want to call that intelligence, disruption technology. It's all bullshit, the way it's being used. You see, where it really is needed, it's not being used. Where it's not needed, where it's needed, it's not being used, and where it's not needed, it's being used. So the idea is to shore up your systems that can track somebody. You really do need a big drone, and you'd actually need one big drone per district or precinct with the capability of moving one that's not needed into an area that it's needed. And then also the suburbs. So again, like Kansas City metropolitan area, the drone would service 2 states at this point. So again, as you increase the drones, like initially, obviously, you're only going to be able to get 1 or 2 drones, right? But over time, again, the same thing they did with helicopters, right? And I think it'd be a lot less money to operate the drones in the long run. Again, the initial drones, we could have offset the cost by getting surplus, and that's not happening. I mean, cities like Chicago, LA, Philadelphia should have received those drones that are now maybe even destroyed in Ukraine. Well, you don't have to chase somebody. You just put the drone up, and drone has a great capability of following somebody. And this is what they're doing in the cases. They're following people back. What I don't understand is, well, I guess he didn't really do them in Kansas City, did he? Like Barbados or whatever his name is, Barbuda. The bank robber. I just how did he go so long, Right. But I guess not most, but at least some of his banks were, and maybe most, weren't actually in a major city with a well system, right? And maybe he knew something about how to take a back road or something that had no cameras. And again, that's where those rural and semi-rural camera systems come in. Everybody should be vested in putting solar-powered cameras out there. You don't even have to have real-time view. I mean, it's not much more money to have real-time view, but you could just have it recording, and then when somebody robs your bank, you go out and you look, you hook up to it with your phone when you're under the pole or whatever, and then or plug in, right, and then you have your information. I mean, whatever it takes to get those cameras out there. But, there's a lot of 5G. So at this point, even a 4G camera appears to send a good enough image. Well, if you look at a lot of rural and semi-rural areas, there's only so many intersections that you need to cover because of how the area is structured. I mean, the more the better, but sometimes you just get a few cameras around a small town and you're done. The in, the out, and a couple intersections. Outside the town. One goes to the highway, one goes that way. And then, you're once you have that, and then the next small town has a couple here and there, and then it fits together. And again, the strategic plan is being failed by tactical lunacy, by getting in a vehicle. Don't get in a vehicle. Make the system work. Step back, call, pursue if necessary. I think eventually there will be enough, but a lot of times people that are criminals in law enforcement don't want cameras. They want cameras, like they'll put a camera up to go dog somebody, to go psychologically operate somebody and to harass them and destroy their life. But they don't want general cameras. They want to know where each camera is for their own use. They don't want it on an intersection. But then it shows them going somewhere or doing something wrong. But if you build the system around what I'm telling you to build it around, if you teach the officers the way I'm telling you to teach the officers, you're going to have less of the issue because your minds will be right. Your minds will be focused. It's really a form of special operations the way I'm telling you to do it. It's just not. What we need to do is elevate everyday law enforcement, not in the direction that you're going, because you're all into this disruption and harming people. But if we sit back and we use the system the way it was built to be used, well, the way it's available to be used, it's not built yet the way it's supposed to be used and should be used. So we have people that are blocking that because they don't want to take tools they use to commit crimes. If you're harassing somebody and then you pull them over to chase and kill, that's a crime. That's murder. That's premeditated first-degree murder. And that's going on. Whether what they'll say, well, you didn't do that, and we didn't try to pull you over. Well, if you thought it would work, you'd have pulled me over. 100%. Well, I'm going to go chill for a little bit, and I'll be back out again and take a longer walk. Stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do. Praise God.